The autumn rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Sullivan's penthouse office on the 47th floor of the Sullivan Financial Tower in downtown Chicago. At 34, Marcus had built an empire from nothing, but today, his usual confidence wavered as he stared at the legal documents spread across his mahogany desk. "The inheritance clause is ironclad," Mr. Sullivan, his lawyer, James Mitchell, explained for the third time. "Your grandfather's will specifically states that to inherit the Sullivan Foundation, worth $2.8 billion, you must be married by your 35th birthday. That gives you exactly 6 weeks." Marcus loosened his Italian silk tie, feeling the weight of generations of family legacy pressing down on him. The Sullivan Foundation wasn't just money, it was his grandfather's life work, funding medical research and educational programs across the country. Without it, thousands of scholarships would disappear, and groundbreaking research would halt. "I've tried dating, James. Every woman I meet either wants my money or sees me as a business transaction." Marcus's voice carried a weariness that his wealth couldn't cure. "I need someone who won't fall for the lifestyle, someone who can see past all this." The irony of his next thought struck him immediately. That evening, Marcus found himself in an unlikely place, the Chicago Center for the Blind, volunteering at their annual fundraising dinner. He'd been coming here quietly for 2 years, drawn by the genuine interactions with people who couldn't judge him by his expensive suits or famous last name. Emma Rodriguez was setting up chairs in the main hall when Marcus arrived. At 26, she moved with a practiced grace that came from years of navigating the world without sight. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a modest blue dress that complemented her warm complexion. "Marcus." Emma's voice brightened as she recognized his footsteps. "You're early tonight." "I wanted to help with setup," he replied, genuinely meaning it. Over the past months, their conversations had become the highlight of his visits. Emma was studying social work at Northwestern University, working part-time at the center, and had dreams of opening her own non-profit for disabled youth. As they worked together, arranging tables and testing the sound system, Marcus found himself studying Emma's expressions. She had an expressive face that showed every emotion clearly: joy when she laughed at his terrible jokes, concentration when she listened to problems, and a fierce determination when she spoke about her goals. "Emma," Marcus began hesitantly as they finished their tasks, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." She settled into a nearby chair, giving him her full attention. "If someone offered you enough money to change your life completely, to pay for your education, help your family, fund your dream nonprofit, what would you be willing to do for it?" Emma was quiet for a long moment. "That's a heavy question, Marcus. I suppose it would depend on what they were asking and whether it would hurt anyone." "Why?" Marcus took a deep breath. What he was about to propose was unconventional, perhaps even crazy, but desperation had led him to unconventional solutions before. "I need a wife," he said simply. "Not a real marriage, just a legal ceremony that would last exactly 1 day. It's complicated, but it involves an inheritance that could help thousands of people. I'm offering $500,000. Emma's hands stilled in her lap. "I'm sorry, what?" "I know how it sounds," Marcus rushed to explain. "It would be completely professional. A simple courthouse ceremony, maybe a few photos for legal documentation, and then an immediate annulment. You'd never have to see me again if you didn't want to." "Marcus, I don't understand. Why me? And why would you need to do this at all?" For the next hour, Marcus explained everything: his grandfather's will, the foundation, the impossible deadline, and his growing desperation. He was brutally honest about his failed relationships and his realization that he needed someone who couldn't be dazzled by his wealth. "You're asking me to marry you because I'm blind," Emma said finally, her voice carefully controlled. "No," Marcus said firmly. "I'm asking you because you're the most genuine person I've ever met. You listen when people talk, you care about making a difference, and you see people for who they really are, not what they have. The fact that you can't see my bank account is just a bonus." Emma stood up and walked to the window, her fingers tracing the glass as she thought. The rain had stopped, and the city lights created a warm glow that she could sense but not see. $500,000 would change everything for me, she admitted quietly. "I could finish school without debt, help my mother with her medical bills, and maybe even start that non-profit years earlier than planned." "But," Marcus prompted, sensing her hesitation. But this feels like I'd be selling something precious for money. Marriage, even a fake one, means something to me. My parents were married for 30 years before my father died. They showed me what real love looks like. Marcus joined her at the window. Emma, I'm not asking you to give up on real love. I'm asking you to help me save something my grandfather built, something that helps people like you achieve their dreams. Maybe we can help each other. Emma turned toward him, and for a moment, Marcus felt as if she could see right through him. If I agree to this insane plan, I have conditions. Name them. First, I want to know everything about you, not your public biography, but who you really are. If I'm going to stand at an altar with you, even for a day, I need to know I'm not marrying a stranger. Agreed. Second, I want to see where the money from this foundation goes. If I'm going to be part of this story, I want to know it's really helping people. Of course. And third, Emma's voice grew softer, I want your word that this won't change how you see people like me. I'm not doing this because I'm desperate or because I can't take care of myself. I'm doing this because sometimes good people need help achieving something bigger than themselves. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, struck by her dignity and wisdom. You have my word on all three conditions. Emma extended her hand. Then let's save your grandfather's foundation, Marcus Sullivan. As they shook hands, neither of them realized that this business transaction would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, trust, and what it meant to truly see another person. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation and unexpected intimacy. Marcus had insisted on honoring Emma's first condition completely, which meant spending nearly every evening together, sharing stories and discovering the layers beneath their public personas. They met at coffee shops in Emma's neighborhood, a vibrant area near Wicker Park where Marcus had never spent time. Emma's favorite cafe, the Daily Grind, was nothing like the upscale establishments Marcus usually frequented. The chairs were mismatched, the walls were covered with local artwork, and the barista knew every customer's name and order. Large coffee, black, and a chai latte with extra cinnamon, called out Sarah, the 20-something barista with purple hair and a warm smile. Thanks, Sarah, Emma replied, easily navigating to their usual corner table. How's your mom doing after the surgery? As Sarah updated Emma on her family situation, Marcus watched in amazement. Emma remembered details about everyone: the elderly man who came in every Tuesday to read the paper aloud to himself, the single mother who studied for her nursing degree during her lunch breaks, the teenager who saved up for weeks to buy his girlfriend a birthday latte. You really listen to people, Marcus observed as they settled in with their drinks. It's not just politeness, Emma explained, wrapping her hands around her mug for warmth. When you can't see someone's facial expressions or body language, you learn to pay attention to their voice, their words, their breathing. You'd be surprised what people tell you when they think you're really listening. Over the following days, Marcus shared stories he'd never told anyone. He talked about growing up in boarding schools while his parents traveled for business, about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted something from him, and about the weight of living up to his grandfather's legacy. My grandfather, Henry Sullivan, was the only person who ever expected me to earn anything, Marcus revealed one evening as they walked through Lincoln Park. The October air was crisp, and Emma had linked her arm through his for guidance, a simple gesture that had become natural between them. He made his fortune in manufacturing, but he never forgot growing up poor in rural Illinois. When he created the foundation, he insisted that every scholarship recipient had to maintain a 3.5 GPA and complete community service hours. He believed in lifting people up, not just handing out money. He sounds like a remarkable man, Emma said. You talk about him like he raised you. In many ways, he did. My parents were more interested in social climbing than parenting. Grandfather Henry taught me about responsibility, about using wealth to create opportunities for others. That's why losing the foundation feels like losing him all over again. Emma squeezed his arm gently. We won't let that happen. Their second condition, visiting the foundation's programs, proved equally revealing. Emma insisted on experiencing everything firsthand, from scholarship ceremonies to research lab tours. At Northwestern University's medical research facility, they met Dr. Sarah Chen, whose groundbreaking work on retinal implants was funded by the Sullivan Foundation. We're so close to a breakthrough, Dr. Chen explained enthusiastically. The latest prototypes could restore basic vision to people with certain types of blindness within the next 5 years. Emma listened intently, asking technical questions that impressed the research team. Later, as they left the facility, Marcus noticed her unusual quietness. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "It's ironic, isn't it?" Emma's voice held a note of sadness. "I'm helping you save a foundation that might someday fix people like me." Marcus stopped walking. "Emma, you don't need fixing. You're one of the most capable, intelligent, compassionate people I've ever met." "I know that," she replied quickly. "But sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I could see. Different choices, different opportunities, different relationships. Would you want your sight restored if it were possible?" Emma considered the question seriously. "I think I would, yes. Not because I'm ashamed of being blind, but because I'm curious about colors, about faces, about sunsets. But this is who I am, and I've built a good life as I am." That evening, they sat in Marcus's penthouse for the first time. Emma had insisted on cooking dinner, refusing his offer to order from expensive restaurants. As she moved confidently around his kitchen, preparing her grandmother's recipe for arroz con pollo, Marcus realized he'd never had a home-cooked meal in his own home. "Your apartment is so quiet," Emma observed as they ate. "In my neighborhood, you can always hear life happening. Music, conversations, children playing. Here, it's like being suspended above the world." "I never thought about it that way," Marcus admitted. "I chose this place for the privacy and the view." "What does the view look like right now?" Marcus moved to the window, studying the cityscape he'd seen thousands of times. The sun is setting behind the buildings, casting everything in gold and orange light. There are people walking on the sidewalks below, but they look like tiny dots from up here. Cars moving in patterns like blood cells through arteries. "You see the city like a system," Emma noted. "I hear it like a symphony. Right now, even up here, I can hear the evening rush hour, construction crews finishing their day, and somewhere, someone is playing piano with their windows open." Marcus listened carefully and, for the first time, heard what Emma heard. The city wasn't just a view, it was alive. As the wedding date approached, they fell into a comfortable routine. Marcus would pick Emma up after her classes, and they'd spend the evening together, sometimes walking, sometimes talking over dinner, occasionally just sitting in comfortable silence. Emma was teaching Marcus to navigate the world through sound and touch, while Marcus was showing Emma the weight of responsibility that came with significant resources. "I have a confession," Emma said one evening as they practiced their wedding vows in Marcus's living room. They decided to write simple, honest statements for the ceremony, treating it with the respect the legal commitment deserved, even if it was temporary. "What's that?" "I've been having dreams about what it would be like if this were real." Her cheeks flushed pink as she made the admission. Marcus set down his notes, his heart racing. "Emma, I know this is just business," she continued quickly. "I know you're a good man helping people through your foundation, and I'm a practical woman taking advantage of an unusual opportunity. But spending all this time together, getting to know you, it's been the best few weeks of my life." "Mine too," Marcus admitted quietly. "I keep forgetting this isn't real." They sat in silence for a moment, both aware they were approaching dangerous territory. Finally, Emma stood up. "I should go home. Tomorrow is our wedding day, and I need to remember what this is really about." As Marcus drove Emma home that night, neither of them spoke about the growing connection between them, both afraid that acknowledging it might complicate their carefully planned arrangement. Neither of them slept well that night, each wondering if they were making a mistake that would change their lives forever. The morning of November 15th dawned crisp and clear in Chicago. Marcus stood in his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. He'd chosen a simple charcoal gray suit, elegant but not ostentatious for their courthouse wedding. His reflection showed a man who looked successful and composed, but his hands shook slightly as he fastened his cufflinks. His phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer, all paperwork ready. "Judge Martinez will perform the ceremony at 2 p.m. Annulment papers prepared for tomorrow." The practicality of the message should have been reassuring, but instead, it made Marcus's stomach tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Across town, Emma sat in her small apartment's living room while her best friend and neighbor, Rosa Martinez, helped her get ready. Emma wore a simple cream-colored dress she'd bought specifically for this day, modest, elegant, and affordable. She'd insisted on purchasing it herself, maintaining some independence in this transaction. "Mija, you sure about this?" Rosa asked for the 10th time while carefully braiding Emma's hair. "I know you need the money for school and your mama's treatments, but marriage is sacred, even if it's just for a day." "It's going to help so many people, Rosa," Emma replied, though her voice lacked its usual certainty. "Marcus showed me the Foundation's programs. They fund scholarships for kids like my cousin Miguel, and research that could help thousands of people with disabilities." "That's not what I'm worried about," Rosa said gently. "I'm worried about your heart. The way you talk about this man, it doesn't sound like just business anymore." Emma was quiet as Rosa fastened a simple pearl necklace around her neck, borrowed from Rosa for good luck. "It's just one day," she said finally. "Tomorrow everything goes back to normal." At 1:30 p.m., Marcus waited outside the Cook County Courthouse, checking his watch every few seconds. The November wind cut through his coat, but he barely noticed the cold. He'd arrived 30 minutes early, unable to stay in his apartment any longer. When the taxi pulled up and Emma emerged, Marcus felt his breath catch. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked dignified and serene. The cream dress complemented her skin tone perfectly, and her hair was braided with small white flowers Rosa had insisted on adding. "You look," Marcus began as he approached her, "appropriate for a business arrangement?" Emma asked with a slight smile, though he could hear the tension in her voice. "Beautiful," he finished simply. "You look beautiful." Emma's hand found his arm as they walked up the courthouse steps together. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as someone can be for a fake marriage to save a real inheritance," Marcus replied, trying to keep the mood light. Inside the courthouse, they were directed to a small chamber where Judge Patricia Martinez, no relation to Rosa, despite the shared surname, would perform the ceremony. The room was simple but dignified, with wooden paneling and tall windows that let in the afternoon sunlight. James Mitchell, Marcus's lawyer, waited with the necessary paperwork, along with 2 court employees who would serve as witnesses. The atmosphere was professional, businesslike, exactly what they'd planned. "Mr. Sullivan, Ms. Rodriguez," Judge Martinez greeted them warmly. "I understand this is a somewhat unusual situation, but I want you both to know that regardless of the circumstances, the vows you take today are legally binding. Do you both understand this?" "Yes, Your Honor," they replied in unison. "Very well. Let's begin." As they stood before the judge, Marcus and Emma faced each other. This was the moment they'd practiced, the simple exchange of vows they'd written to satisfy the legal requirements while maintaining emotional distance. "Marcus Sullivan," Judge Martinez began, "do you take Emma Rodriguez to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live?" Marcus looked at Emma's face, at the trust and vulnerability she couldn't quite hide despite her composed exterior. All the practiced, businesslike words he'd planned to say dissolved on his tongue. "I do," he said, his voice stronger than he expected. "Emma, I promise to honor you and protect you and support your dreams, not just today, but for as long as you'll let me." Emma's composure faltered slightly. Those weren't the words they'd practiced. "Emma Rodriguez," the judge continued, "do you take Marcus Sullivan to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live?" Emma stood silent for a long moment. The room held its breath. Marcus's lawyer shifted nervously, checking his watch and thinking about the inheritance deadline. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice clear and carrying to every corner of the small chamber. "Your Honor, I need to say something before I answer." Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Go ahead, dear." Emma turned toward Marcus, though she couldn't see his face. "Marcus, when you first proposed this arrangement, I thought it was just a business transaction. You needed a wife. I needed money. Simple." Marcus's heart pounded as he waited for her to continue. "But these past few weeks, you've shown me who you really are. You're not just a wealthy man trying to claim an inheritance. You're someone who remembers every story I tell about my students, who listens when the barista talks about her problems, who genuinely cares about the people your foundation helps." The lawyer cleared his throat softly, a gentle reminder of the time constraints, but Emma continued. "You've made me feel seen in ways that have nothing to do with physical sight. You've made me feel valued for my mind, my dreams, my heart. So yes, I take you as my husband, Marcus Sullivan, but not just for today." The room was completely silent. "I'm falling in love with you," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. "I know that wasn't part of our deal. I know you might not feel the same way. But I can't stand at this altar and lie, not even for $500,000. If you want to marry me, you're getting all of me, my love, my trust, my hope that maybe this could be real." Marcus stared at her, stunned. The carefully constructed walls he'd built around his heart crumbled completely. "Emma," he said softly, stepping closer to her, "I've been falling in love with you since our second conversation at the community center. I was just too scared to admit it, even to myself." Judge Martinez smiled warmly. "Well, this is turning out much better than I expected. Shall we continue with the ceremony?" "Wait," Marcus said, turning to his lawyer. "James, tear up the annulment papers." "Marcus, are you sure? The inheritance." The inheritance was supposed to ensure the foundation continues helping people. "Emma makes me want to be the kind of man my grandfather would be proud of, not just someone who follows the letter of his will." Marcus turned back to Emma. "If you'll have me, I want this marriage to be real. I want to build a life with you." Emma's face lit up with joy. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll have you." They exchanged rings, simple gold bands they'd purchased for the ceremony but which now carried profound meaning. When Judge Martinez pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was tender, full of promise, and witnessed by a roomful of people who had just seen a business arrangement transform into something beautiful and true. As they signed the marriage certificate, Marcus leaned over to Emma. "So, Mrs. Sullivan, what would you like to do with the rest of our lives?" Emma smiled, her hand finding his. "How about we start by really saving that foundation together?" Outside the courthouse, as they walked hand in hand into their new life together, Emma paused. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Anything. What does it look like when two people fall in love? I've always wondered about the visual part of it." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "It looks like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm," he said softly. "It looks like two puzzle pieces fitting together perfectly. It looks like coming home." Emma smiled, standing on her tiptoes to kiss her husband. "Then I can see it perfectly." 6 months later, the Sullivan Foundation had expanded its programs to include advocacy for disability rights, with Emma leading the initiative. Marcus had moved out of his penthouse into a house in Emma's neighborhood, where they could hear the symphony of life she'd taught him to appreciate. Their love story became legendary at the Chicago Center for the Blind, where they continued to volunteer together, proof that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. And every November 15th, they renewed their vows, not because they had to, but because they wanted to, celebrating the day a fake marriage became the realest thing in their lives.